Assalamualaikum, I am Ainur Kalisa binti Abdul Rahman. Now it's my turn to elucidate on the background of project of our case study. The chosen case study for this report was the Trans World Airline Terminal Center, which also known as TWA Terminal Center, that was located in New York. Based on the wikiarchitectural.com, the original name for this building was for Eros Arenas, who was the architect for this building. However, it was later being renamed as John F. Kennedy International Airport. Basically, this building received lots of appraisal and also compliments regarding to its futuristic and unique design. The design was a resemblance of a bird that spread its wing in order to land on the ground. Few construction players were contributed in these projects, such as for the architect, Eros Arenas, Cesare Pelli, Kevin Roche, Edward Saad, and also Norman Petula. And for the client of this project was the Ralph Dawson from the Trans World Airline at Idlewild Airport. Few collaboration also being made in order to engineer the roof of this building. This is because it consists of reinforced concrete thin shell that supported at the corners. Therefore, Amman and Whitney firm was the one who in charge for the structural engineering of the roof. Meanwhile, Grove Shepherd Wilson and Crush was the contractor for this project. The overall cost of this project was about $12 million and it was completed on 28th May 1962. This construction project also involved a number of 14 engineers and 150 craftsmen for its completion.
So, shell structures typically reflect a thin material, arc framework, H-beam, and abutment. So, the first thing is I would like to share on design principle of shell structure. The first design was thin concrete shell. Thin shell is described as a shell with a thickness that is small compared to its other dimensions and in which the deformation is not significant compared to the thickness. The primary distinction between the shell structure and the plate structure is that in an unstressed state, and shell structure has a curvature as opposed to the flat plate structure. The second principal design was buttress, which is column support. This project concern was to avoid excessive thickness in the H-beam that would hold the cantilever. The form evolved from a single continuous shell, some shell fastened by large ribs, reaching the final form consists of 4 distinct arches with a sail hood pointed out, forming a kind of 4-pointed star. The H-beam was configured as a forward slope and the ridge that forms in the backfill water collection channel of the cover. So, the third design principle was glass skylight and glass curtain wall. The shell was separated by 3 skylights stretched across the seams. Each of the shell meet in the center in order to support each other. The skylight emphasized the line of the roof and the separation of the vaults. Next, we continue with the limitation of shell structure. The first one is concrete. Concrete is porous material, which is concrete shell roof. Also have issues with sealing. If not treated, rainwater will leak through the roof and into the interior of the area. On the other hand, the smooth structure of concrete dome prevents air from leaking, which can lead to condensation on the inside of the shell. Next is the second one is longer curing time, which is the concrete have a longer curing time, which the concrete achieve the required comprehensive strength within 28 days of casting and curing. Full strength production requires adequate ambient temperature regulation over a span of 1 month. It is another downside of the concrete. The curing time is shortened by steam curing or microwave curing or by mixing. The third one is the construction cost. The cost should always be considered during designing, and it is the best way to reduce the cost by using appropriate structures. According to the previous study, we could find that there is a same advantage between different structure type, which is reducing cost. There is no influence when producing a mock-up or a small prototype, but the cost will be a big issue when manufacturing product or building architecture.
Now, let's jump to the method installation. The first method encountered was to construct the foundation pad of the building. The foundations such as piles and rafts were used to support the structure of the building, the columns being mounted on the foundation and the reinforcing steel after that being placed before the concrete slab being poured. The second method was to construct the formwork for the sidewall and the curve-shaped top. It was necessary to provide the temporary support to prevent the uplift and also to give support for the structure. The third methodology was to construct the concrete shell structure. Based on K. Billig 1943, in order to construct the roof skeleton, the longitudinal wires need to be stretched between the stiffness and it should be pre-tensioned in order to reduce the effect of sagging. Then, the end of the horizontal wires would be released after the concrete being sufficiently hardened. The fourth methodology was to check for the load bearing. It is necessary for the buckling of the elements in the compression being checked. For example, buckling due to the dead load, leaf load, and also snow loads. And last but not least, the completion of the project. After all of the important requirements already being implemented throughout the project, the construction process being proceeded until the project was completed.
Assalamualaikum. Allow me to continue with the explanations of the detail jointing. Figure 17 shows the connections between the footings and the roof structure. The structure is being connected by the strap anchor, which is in the figure shown as number 8 and number 7 as the footing. While figure 18 shows the cross sections of the connections between the arch and the footings of the roof structure. They are being connected by reinforced dowels, which can be seen in figure as 9a. This work is strictly need to followed by the standard practice so it can be constructed properly. The arch of the roof structure should be made of steel or plastic in order to follow the curvatures of the roof accurately. This arch tube crossing will be connected by the tubular connectors, which come from cross shapes or T-shape depending on the place that it will be connected. The example of connected can be seen in figure 20. Last but not least, figure 21, which shows the mesh that have been used to support the concrete when concrete being poured and sprayed on it. It will support until the cover of the reinforced framework and follow the predetermined thickness. Okay, now let me continue with the material merits and demerits of the material. Concrete is the most suitable material that used to build shell roof because concrete is high in plastic when it was first mixed with the water, so it will help to take any shapes on centering or inside the formwork. To construct the shell roof, it used sand, cement, silica suspension, water, quartz floor, fly ash, and concrete plasticizer. There are many merits and demerits of using concrete as the main structure. The merits of using concrete as main structure of the cell structure is obviously it will become a strong structure which can allow wide area to be spanned even without using of the internal support. Next, it could reduce the construction cost as the concrete is not that expensive. Other than that, the structure can provide the efficient resistance mechanism which can allow from getting maximum structural advantages. Other than provide the aesthetic value, it also can protect the building from the fire blast. Opposite of the merit, concrete itself is a porous material and usually will causing problem on the ceiling part. Improper build can cause the air to trap inside the buildings and it prevent the air from escaping, thus leading the consequences where the condensation can happen inside the shell. Reinforced concrete shell structure has a high formwork cost because of its complex design. Thin concrete shell can be sensitive to even small geometry. Therefore, small error in thickness can cause significant effects in terms of stiffness and stability. Last but not least, high level of skill is needed by the labor to construct the shell roof, so automatically will affect the labor cost. The labor cost is more than the construction cost.
For safety measure during the installation of the shell roof, I want to highlight 5 safety measures that needs to be done during the work. For the first one is secure perimeter of the site. So installation of the shell roof is involve working at a high place. So it is important to secure the perimeter of the site to prevent accident happen to the workers and the public. Second, provide adequate support to the roof structure. So this safety measure will prevent uplift and will support the concrete. If not, the concrete will be bent and even worse can collapse to the ground. Third, using PPE during working at a high place. So it is compulsory to use PPE such as safety harness and safety helmet to avoid any risk and accident happen at the site. Fourth one is provide scaffolding. Stable scaffolding to the workers is a must to ensure the safety of the workers when they are working during the installation of the shell roof. And last is run an inspection to the structure. Run inspection to the structure that have been built is important to make sure the strength of the structure is follow the engineer's requirement, and also to avoid faulty crack in the concrete.
So next is for the mechanical and electrical provided on the TWA airport. The first one is ventilation duct. Ducts are conduit or passage used in heating, ventilation and air conditioning, which is HVAC, to deliver and remove air. The needed air flows include, for example, supply air, return air, and exhaust air. Ducts are commonly also deliver ventilation air as part of the supply air. Next is the second one is spectrum lighting. Spectrum lighting had the honor of contributing to this legacy by illuminating the lobby of the TWA airports with lighting features that pay homage to their 1960s predecessor. The Spectrum was given the mission of recreating the 1962 vintage eyeball, cylinder and spotlight features, update with modern function and have a long and powerful lifespan.
For the next part is factor to be considered during the installation of M&E. For the first one is safety purpose. During the installation of M&E, it is compulsory that all workers are wearing proper personal protection equipment, which is PPE. Supervisions at site is important to make sure all the workers follow the regulations in order to prevent any accidents and any unwanted event. So for the next factor is cost and budget. Budget are strong considerations and engineer must limit the equipment options to meet first cost requirement. The total cost of installation including times, material, infrastructure and opportunity costs must be evaluated. So the higher the quality of the materials, therefore the cost also will be expensive. So for the next factor is design of building purpose. During the installations of M&E, it is important to know the design of the building and the functions of the building. This is because the design of the building really affected the choice of mechanical and electrical services.